Greetings everyone. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel. Today, we will conduct a detailed analysis of the global situation as of April 6, 2026. The past 24 hours have brought a vast amount of extremely significant news, so let us dive straight into the details. Massive strikes and air defense activity, the situation in the rear regions. We begin our review with the armed conflict on Ukrainian territory. On the night of April 6th, the Ukrainian side launched another massive strike. According to available video materials, the main thrust of the attack was directed toward the south of the Russian Federation, specifically the Krasnodar Krai. Pro-Ukrainian sources have already published a map of this raid, which suggests that approximately 230 drones were used in the nocturnal operation. Notably, this included the use of jet-powered drones. The primary targets were the residential areas of Novorossiysk and the local port infrastructure. Throughout the day, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reported on the effectiveness of its air defense systems. According to official data, between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m., the Russian side managed to intercept 148 Ukrainian drones. An additional 50 drones were shot down later during the night. To reiterate, the main target was Novorossiysk. Over the course of the night, numerous clips of objective control footage were published, through which we can observe the potential damage and the scale of the impact that the Ukrainian side managed to inflict on this settlement. Furthermore, on April 6th, a large amount of video material was released showing Ukrainian drones flying in the immediate vicinity of the Novorossiysk port infrastructure. Ukrainian sources are also reporting that a ship of the Black Sea Fleet, capable of launching Kalibr missiles, may have been damaged during the strike. However, the published footage does not show the actual moment of impact on a Russian vessel. Therefore, it appears this may be speculation from the Ukrainian side. On the night of April 6th, the Russian Federation also launched a massive strike on Ukrainian territory. Since early morning, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has been reporting that the Russian side utilized 141 drones in the night attack. According to incoming information, over the last few days, the Russian side has been primarily targeting the Poltava region. Specifically, the strikes are directed at energy infrastructure objects belonging to the Naftogaz of Ukraine company. Video materials have also been released showing strikes on oil and gas production facilities. In these frames, we see the aftermath of the attacks, where yet another Ukrainian energy infrastructure object was subjected to a massive raid involving dozens of drones. It appears that as a result of these strikes, several fuel reservoirs were either damaged or completely destroyed. Detailed breakdown of the frontline situation, moving on to the line of active combat. Over the past day, the map has undergone serious corrections. We start with the Zaporizhzhia direction, where the Battle of Zaporizhzhia continues, currently focused near the settlement of Orikhiv. Ukrainian units are continuing their counter-offensive on the West Zaporizhzhia axis, deploying more and more sabotage and reconnaissance groups, DRGs, towards settlements such as Stepnohorsk and Novyakovlevka. Based on various reports from both neutral cartographers and pro-Russian sources, additional adjustments have been made to the map. The grey zone was expanded slightly north of Stepnohorsk, following publications by neutral mapping services. Additionally, corrections were made on the western outskirts of Novyakovlevka. According to reports, several Russian Federation drones targeted forward positions of the armed forces of Ukraine on the western edge of the village. It is possible that Ukrainian saboteurs had previously managed to infiltrate the western outskirts of the settlement. On the East Orikhiv direction, the map has changed significantly over the last few days. This is how the map looked as recently as April 4, 2026. We could see a large grey zone. However, by the morning of April 6th, many corrections appeared, including the total coloring of the grey zone located between the settlements of Zahorn, Mern and Zaliznichny. This pocket, or sack, existed on April 4th, but by the evening of April 5th, the first video materials were published confirming the presence of Russian units at this point along the forest line located southeast of the settlement of Huliaipol. Based on this video evidence, we concluded that Russian units have fully advanced through this pocket and reached the outskirts of Huliaipol. Moreover, the arrival at the outskirts of Huliaipol is confirmed today not only by pro-Russian sources, but also by several neutral mapping services. While the map looked one way on April 4th, It has undergone substantial changes by today, April 6th. Pro-Russian sources are currently stating that the Russian army has already gained a foothold on the outskirts of this settlement, and assault operations are currently underway. Huliaipol is a very important settlement on the Orikhiv axis. Factually, only 3 settlements stand between the town of Orikhiv and Russian positions on the East Zaporizhzhia front: Huliaipol, Novoselivka, and Chervona Krynytsia. Beyond them begins the Orikhiv agglomeration. Battles are already being fought for Huliaipol, and it is possible that in the very near future, the map in this direction will be significantly adjusted, bringing Russian units several kilometers closer to Orikhiv. Fighting also continues on the northern flank, west of the Haicha River. The map here has also seen major changes. On April 6, 2026, information arrived that Russian units managed to seize the farms located in the southeastern part of the settlement of Vozdvizhevka. Simultaneously, information indicates that the Ukrainian side launched a counterattack from the northeastern part of Vozdvizhevka toward the P85 highway and the Haicha River. According to reports, the Ukrainian side managed to restore partial control over the forest belts and the railway line situated between Vozdvizhevka, Rozdvianka, and Ternavate. If we look at the progression from April 4th to the end of April 6th, it can be assumed that the Ukrainian side is currently attempting a series of counterstrikes toward Radisna, Nove Zaporizhzhia, and Dobropilya. Their goal is to encircle the Russian garrison currently located in the settlement of Ternavate and its surroundings. Furthermore, information is arriving today from the settlement of Boykovo. Pro-Ukrainian sources published objective control footage showing the movement of Ukrainian units within this village. I remind you that a few days ago, specifically on April 1, 2026, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation and the Vostok grouping confirmed full control over this settlement, supported by video evidence. Yet today, April 6th, reports indicate that the Ukrainian side is conducting a counter-offensive on this sector as well, also aiming toward Ternavate. On the North Zaporizhzhia sector, the Russian army is actively counter-attacking to restore control over all territories lost during the Ukrainian counter-offensives in February and March. There is a small correction near the settlement of Ternov, where Ukrainian FPV drone operators are striking forward Russian positions. A large amount of video material was also published from the area of Berezove, showing strikes on Russian forward positions within the settlement. Although pro-Ukrainian sources claimed, and many still claim, that Berezov is under full Ukrainian control, publications from both sides throughout April confirm that the Russian army has established control over this village. It appears that during their counterattack, the Russian side has partially restored control over territories lost during the Ukrainian winter-spring offensive. On the Dobropilya direction, combat continues in the triangle of Belitske, Novoshakovo, Novodalbas. The map here is updated with striking regularity. For several days, it shifts in favor of Russian units, followed by a shift in the opposite direction. Currently, the Russian army is attempting to consolidate along the Belitske, Novodalbas, Novoshakovo line to reach the southeastern outskirts of Dobropilya. By the end of April 6, 2026, another Ukrainian counteroffensive was noted from the direction of Dobropilya toward the northern outskirts of Belitske, Dorozhne, Novodalbas, and Volne. According to the latest reports, the Ukrainian side managed to advance into the territory of Volne, and as a result, this village has been moved back into the grey zone. On the other hand, the Russian army is also trying to advance from Novyi Donbas toward the eastern outskirts of Dobropilya, and there is an additional infiltration zone marked on the map there. On the Kostiantynivka direction, fighting continues for the space between Kostiantynivka and the settlements of Pavlivka and Novopavlivka. This involves the areas around Mykolaiv-Pol, Dolha-Balka, and Rozkishne. An advance of Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups has been recorded here. Some mappers have expanded the grey zone, indicating that Russian units have approached the settlement of Dolha-Balka and that combat is occurring within the village itself. The Russian army has also begun moving through the fields toward Mykolaiv-Pol. It seems that in the near future, Russian units will attempt to level the front line between Pavlivka and Kostiantynivka via Rozkishne and Dolha-Balka. Conversely, information suggests that the Ukrainian side organized counterattacks near Ilinka and west of Kostiantynivka, successfully restoring the supply line between Dolhabalka and Kostiantynivka. Kostiantynivka itself is being subjected to regular glide bomb strikes by Russian forces in an attempt to break the defense, though the map in this sector changes only rarely. On the Slovyansk direction, several important videos were released today, one from the area of Kriva Luka. The footage shows strikes on Russian units moving along a road. We have not yet concluded how to adjust the map based on this, as there are many strong points and grey zones in this area. However, there is a high probability that a strong point north of Kaleniki will be corrected soon. In the town of Lyman, there are no major changes, though Russian units are conducting massive aerial strikes to tilt the situation in their favor. On the northeast Kharkiv direction, Ukrainian sources claim a series of counterattacks were carried out near Ambane and Khatny. As a result, the Ukrainian side reportedly regained control over two forested areas. Several videos were published, but precise coordinates and geolocations have not yet been established to make definitive conclusions. The Middle East conflict. Trump's deadline and the secret operation in Iran. Having discussed the major events in Ukraine, let us turn to the conflict in the Middle East. Very important news is coming from the United States. First, Donald Trump has officially set a deadline for Iran to accept the American deal, Charter's proposal. The US president stated that at 8 p.m. American time, Iran's time to accept the US proposal, which requires Iran to unblock the Strait of Hormuz, will expire. Based on earlier comments by the president, it is assumed that once this deadline passes, the United States will launch massive strikes on energy infrastructure, power plants, and desalination plants across Iran with significant force. There is also information regarding negotiations for a 45-day truce, which could potentially evolve into a full agreement. However, reports suggest that Iran is rejecting all proposals and negotiations from the US, which is clearly unsettling the American president. Meanwhile, the flames of the Middle East conflict continue to grow. Over the past 24 hours, much material has been published, but the most covered event was the rescue operation of two American F-15 pilots, whose aircraft crashed near Isfahan 2 days ago. Search and rescue operations had been ongoing in that area for 48 hours. We previously discussed the first frames from this area showing US helicopters flying over southwestern Iran while being fired upon by Iranian militia or paramilitary units. According to incoming data, up to 100 US soldiers and special forces were involved in the operation near Isfahan, delivered by several planes and helicopters. These units managed to traverse several kilometers on the ground and eventually located the hiding spot of the F-15 pilot. They first identified him to avoid an Iranian trap, after which the special forces prepared to leave. However, several strange details emerged over the last day. The aircraft and helicopters that brought the special forces to the Isfahan area were unable to fly back out. For unknown reasons, either due to damage or other factors, they could not take off. Footage now shows the aftermath of the Americans blowing up their own equipment near Isfahan. Reports state the US destroyed their own planes and helicopters to prevent sensitive equipment from falling into the hands of Iranian forces. Photographs from the site today show the charred remains of the aircraft involved in this special operation. Furthermore, some experts are making significant claims today, suggesting that this 100-man Special Forces mission was not actually a rescue operation for the pilot. Instead, it is theorized that it was a mission to seize enriched uranium belonging to Iran in the Isfahan region. Under this theory, the story of the pilot served as a distraction. While Iranian forces, police, and paramilitaries focused all their attention and resources on finding the pilots, even offering rewards, the US Special Forces were operating elsewhere. There are reports that the search areas for the pilots, the crash site of the F-15, and the landing site of the US Special Forces do not geographically align. As of now, there is no official confirmation of this. The Americans claim they successfully saved the pilot. However, President Trump is scheduled to give an interview this evening. It is possible that tonight or in the coming days, the American side will confirm that the pilot rescue served as a cover for the removal of uranium from Iranian territory. If this is confirmed, It can be argued that the United States has achieved the goals originally set by Trump for Operation Epic Fury. This would give the US grounds to finally exit the region, leaving the Persian Gulf states to deal with Iran alone regarding both the Strait of Hormuz and broader security issues. Finally, materials continue to arrive showing Iranian strikes on the infrastructure of Middle Eastern states, specifically oil refineries. Strikes also continue against the United Arab Emirates and industrial enterprises. Iran maintains its control over the Strait of Hormuz, although it is reported that 15 ships were allowed to pass in the last 24 hours. These were either ships from friendly nations or those that paid a passage fee estimated at $2 million per vessel. Iran has reiterated that no negotiations are currently taking place with the United States. According to Tehran's position, the US must pay full compensation for all damages and destruction caused for the conflict to end. We understand this would be an astronomical sum of money, a deal the United States is unlikely ever to accept. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and I wish you all the best.